Hi, and welcome to Yoga for Normal People. I started this channel a while ago, but haven't been keeping it up to date. And I thought, with sort of the advent of what's been going on in the world, I would kick it back off again. I'd like to welcome you to my yoga space, at least temporarily, and introduce you to one of the many pets we have. This is Gusto. He will likely participate in today's sequence. You'll see him come in and out all over the place. And today we're going to work a little bit on sort of reducing our anxiety and just being present with some of the emotions that are coming up, especially around our fear and our terror around what's happening in the world. It's okay to be scared. Gusto's telling me it's okay to be scared. And, this practice is designed to help you move through that. So I grabbed a couple of things that you can find around your house, really super simple stuff. First is a little throw blanket that you can use as a support for hips or backs or as a tool as we practice. It's better to have something that has a little bit more structure to it, and you can use it as a way to support your body in many of the poses. The second thing I grabbed was actually a pillow just from the bed. This one's a little firmer, and you can fold it and use it to help support yourself in a few of the poses we're going to do today. And then finally, I grabbed a couple of belts, regular standard belts out of my closet. One is a leather one with just like a normal belt buckle, and the other is a really old one that I had from forever ago, and it has sort of like one of those double D loops on the end. This is more like a yoga strap, and might be more useful, but whatever you have, you can use a scarf, you can use a belt, you can use whatever you've got around your house. And for my practice today, I'm going to actually use the leather belt and the pillow. So go ahead and just set those props off to the side. I'm going to just take my blanket and slide it underneath my hips so that I have a little bit of support. A lot of people have a hard time sitting on the floor very flat. So when you can drop your knees below your hips, it can help make this position more comfortable. And the first thing we're going to do is come to a comfortable seat. So whatever shape that may be. Now, we're going to start with a few settling breaths just to sort of bring ourselves into the space. And, you can be entertained by Gusto as he paws me for attention. So once you've found your comfortable seat, whatever shape that is, you're going to go ahead and gently close your eyes. And we're going to practice something called box breathing. Now, I know that sounds a little risque, a little questionable, but trust me on this. It's essentially designed to help reset your nervous system and just get you back to sort of your resting heart rate, let your body settle in. So close your eyes. And what we're going to do is first take a deep inhale. So inhale all the way as if you're inhaling from the base of your hips all the way up into your shoulders. And then you're going to exhale and sigh it out. You're going to do that one more time. So inhale and exhale. Just let it go. And then gently, you're going to start to inhale for a count of 4. So inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold for 4, 3, 2, 1, and then exhale for 1, 2, 3, and 4, and hold at the bottom for 1, 2, 3, and 4. You're going to do that 2 more times. So inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold at the top. 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold at the bottom. 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold at the bottom for 4, 3, 2, and 1. And just gently let your breath come back to its normal rhythm. So letting it flow in and out and allowing the body to just settle. And as you sit, just notice the sensation of your knees and your hips as they connect to the floor, as they connect to the chair. And take a few deep breaths, just settling in. And once you've taken a few deep breaths, you can gently start to open your eyes. And we're going to get moving just a little bit here. So go ahead and take that blanket and slide it off to the side. And you're going to take a walk on up to the front of your mat. So stand with your feet underneath your shoulders and your hips aligned over your heels. So a nice long solid stance. Shoulders are open and drop down the back. And if you'd like, you can take your hands and place them next to your hips, palms face forward. And on your inhale, you're going to sweep your arms up and overhead. And then exhale and just swan dive down to fold. So just fold as far as you want, and if your fingertips come to the floor, that's great. If not, they can rest on your shins or on the tops of your feet. And here you can take a deep bend in your knees and just let some softness come into your body. Take an inhale here. And on your exhale, see if you can release down a little deeper, maybe straightening your legs, maybe like pedaling out the knees left and right. And then on your inhale, gently bend your knees, sweep your arms up and overhead. And then take your hands down to heart center. Inhale, sweep your arms up and overhead. And exhale, swan dive down to fold. Take a deep breath in and an exhale to let it go. Let your head hang heavy. Inhale and sweep your arms up and overhead, and we're going to add on. Exhale, swan dive down to fold. This time, inhale to halfway lift. So send your heart forward towards the front of your mat and exhale to fold. And then inhale, deeply bend your knees, sweep your arms up over your head and come into a chair pose. In this pose, you want to make sure that your knees are not jutting out past your toes and you're just wrapping the thighs towards the midline. So if you'd like, you can take your hands to your hips. You can also reach your arms up and overhead. Or if it's more comfortable, hands can come to heart center. Take an inhale here. And then on your exhale, go ahead and sweep your arms up. Take an inhale at the top and exhale, hands down to heart center. We'll do that one more time. Inhale, sweep the arms up and overhead. Exhale to swan dive down and fold. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale, sink your hips towards your heels, sweep your arms up, and take that chair pose once again. Take a couple deep breaths here, just letting your breath come in and out of your body normally, noticing what it's doing. Take an inhale here, and on your exhale, go ahead and stand straight up. Take your hands back down next to your hips. Turn your palms towards the front of the mat, roll your shoulder blades down your back, and lift your heart. And just take a few deep breaths. So we're going to move into what's known as a sun salutation. So you'll hear this stuff a lot in lots of yoga classes. It's a very basic sequence of poses that will help you kind of get the blood going a little bit before we start to move a little bit deeper. So inhale to sweep your arms up and overhead. Exhale to swan dive down and fold. Inhale to halfway lift. And exhale, go ahead and pick up that right foot and step it to the back of your mat. So you're coming into a high lunge. Take an inhale here. And exhale, you can drop that back knee, untuck your toes, and inhale, sweep your arms up and overhead. Take an inhale here to lift your heart. And then exhale, frame your front foot, tuck your back toes, lift your back knee, come back into that high lunge, and then gently step forward, feet together at the top of your mat. Inhale to halfway lift, and exhale to fold. Inhale to sweep your arms up and overhead, come all the way up to standing, and exhale, hands to heart center. We're going to repeat that on the opposite side. So inhale, arms up. Exhale to swan dive down and fold. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale, plant your hands, step back with your left foot. Come into that high lunge once again. Take an inhale here. And then on your exhale, drop that back knee, untuck your toes. Inhale to lift your arms up and overhead. Take an inhale here and an exhale. One more inhale. And on your exhale, Frame that front foot, untuck your toes, lift that back knee, and step forward, coming back into that forward fold. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale, bend your knees, sweep your arms up and overhead. And exhale, hands down to heart center. Inhale to sweep the arms up and overhead. Exhale, swan dive down to fold. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale, this time we're going to plant both our hands and step back into a high plank. So we're moving into the more vigorous part of our practice. Take an inhale here. And then exhale, drop your knees, then drop your chest and chin to the floor. And inhale up through up dog or cobra. Take an inhale here. And then exhale, press back, downward facing dog. Take a moment in your downward dog just to pedal out your heels. Let each one drop towards the mat. Take a few deep breaths. And then inhale, bend your knees, look between your hands, and just take a walk up to the top of your mat. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale to sweep your arms up and overhead. And exhale, hands down to heart center. We're going to do that again. Inhale to sweep up. Exhale to fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, plant your hands, step back, high plank. And here you can stay here. You can drop to the knees, or you can come down into a chaturanga and pass in through an upward facing dog or a cobra. So optionally, if you're changing the way that looks, you're dropping down to the knees, dropping your chest towards the mat, dropping your feet, coming up to just a baby, little cobra, and then exhaling, pressing back, downward facing dog. And then from here, you're just going to walk your feet forward, come down to your knees, and then come down to sit. We're going to start doing a little bit of work with some of the props that we have here. So we're going to start by taking our blanket, and a towel will work just as well. Something with a little structure would be great. And what you're going to do is actually unfold it so that it comes to be about this size. And you're just going to roll it up so it makes a nice long sort of snake. And you're going to take that snake and you're going to place it down the middle of your mat as if it's a long spine. And then you're going to take your belt and place it off to the left or right, and then turn your back to the base of that snake. So if your snake's a little long, you can always tuck it towards your tail. Once you get that snake kind of snugged up against your tail, you're just going to slowly lower yourself down onto that blanket that's acting like a second spine. Your head will come to rest on that blanket. If you have extra blanket, you can always choose to gently roll it up and let it support your head. Just depends on how you're feeling. So a lot of times when we feel anxious, we collapse, we close down, we hug to ourselves, right? We want to become small and compressed things instead of broad and expanding. So we're going to work on opening up a little bit. So you're going to take your belt and place it in your hands. And you're going to take your hands up over your shoulders, the palms facing towards your feet. And you can choose to either let your legs go long, or if your back's bothering you, you can bend your knees. And about shoulder width distance with the hands. You can either choose to wrap the thumbs around the belt, or you can keep them on the same size as your fingers. In my case, I like to keep them on the same size as my fingers because sometimes when I take the belt up and overhead, I need to slide my arms wider. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take that belt, and on your inhale, you're going to sweep your arms up and back. Let the backs of the hands rest on the floor. And then inhale up through center, up over the chest, and exhale down towards the hips. Inhale up through center, and exhale overhead. So you can do this as many times as you like. We're going to spend a few minutes just doing what is called shoulder flossing. This is one of my favorite moves. It's fantastic if you sit at a desk all day, if you're hunched over, if you're feeling compressed and small. So one of my favorite BKS Iyengar quotes, and I know this is getting super yoga-y, but hear me out, it's kind of appropriate in this time, is don't think of yourself as a small compressed thing. Think of yourself as constantly expanding even when you don't feel that way. And of course I'm paraphrasing. He actually put it a lot more eloquently than that, but the idea in these times when we're scared and when we're anxious is to allow our bodies, our hearts to open just a little bit and allow some of our compassion to kind of come through. So we'll do that one more time, just letting the breath move our arms up and overhead and then allowing them to come back down towards our hips. And then go ahead and place that belt off to the left or right. And from here, you can choose to either take your legs out long or keep the knees bent, and you're just going to take your hands behind your head and let the elbows drop. So you'll feel, with the blanket, you'll feel feedback between your shoulder blades, and just take a few breaths here. Just allow the air to move into your lungs and out. Good. Then once you've taken those few breaths, go ahead and just take your hands down next to your hips, gently bend your knees, and then slowly either pull down on your mat to draw your elbows down into the ground, or if that's too much, you can always drop your knees over to the left or right and roll to your side and come to sit up. We're actually going to continue to work with that blanket. So keeping that roll, what I'd like you to do is come to hands and knees. You'll take that roll and place it behind your knees, right in sort of that soft spot on your calves. So come into a kneeling position where your knees are stacked underneath your hips. And then you're just going to sit back towards your heels and allow that blanket to be compressed between the backs of your thighs and the backs of your shins. And just take a couple of deep breaths here. And then once you've done that, you can come on forward, slide that blanket back out from behind your knees, and then just sit back, this time without the blanket. And as we kneel here, what I'd like you to do is go ahead and reach over and grab that belt once again. And in this case, in many times, if you have a yoga belt, you'd do this slightly differently. But in this case, since I'm using a regular belt, I'm just going to make a loop with my belt and pass it behind my back and hook. I'll do it this way so you can see it, and hook my elbow sort of in it. And then from here, I'm going to take my hand and draw it behind my back. So I'm just giving a little bit of pull on that belt to just sort of adjust the shoulder so it comes behind my back a little bit more and my heart lifts. And just hold that for a couple breaths. And then go ahead and switch sides. So you're just going to switch the loop of that belt onto that upper arm, and then take that arm behind the back and just give it a little tug. Allow that chest to lift. And then once you've done that, go ahead and release that strap, release that belt, place it off to the left or right. And you're going to come back onto all fours. So here we're going to work a little bit into our wrists and our hands. So in the current climate, we're probably spending a lot more time on our phones, which results in a lot of like carpal tunnel sensation in our hands and our wrists and our elbows scrolling through our phones. So what I'd like you to do is just gently start to roll your body through your wrists. So shoulders come back towards the hips, then they go to the right. Then they come forward of the wrists, and they go left So you're just doing circles. And once you've done a couple of circles here, you're going to turn your hands out towards the side. So both fingertips go out towards the long edges of your mat. And you're going to do that same circle one more time. Then you're going to turn the fingertips towards your knees and do the same thing. And you may notice that your circles get a little smaller. That's totally okay. These muscles tend to get really tight and stiff, especially when we're on our phones all the time. And once you've done that, go ahead and turn your fingertips back towards the front of your mat. And we're going to move through a couple of cat-cows. So inhale, lifting the head, lifting the tail. And exhale to round. Press down. Inhale to lift head and tail. And exhale to round. From here, come back to neutral. Take your right foot to the back of the mat, toes face down. On your inhale, pick up that right foot. See if you can imagine a straight line from the crown of your head to the heel of your right foot. Take an inhale here. And then exhale, and you're going to draw knee to nose round through the spine. Inhale to expand. Exhale to contract. Inhale to expand. Exhale to contract. Inhale to expand. And exhale to contract. Go ahead and drop that right knee down. Take your left foot back towards the back of your mat. Square your hips to the mat. So we're not rolling out to the side. We're making sure that everything is facing down towards the floor. Take an inhale and lift that left leg. Flex the toes like you're standing on the wall behind you. Take an inhale here. And then exhale. Draw knee to nose round through the spine. Inhale to expand. Exhale to contract. Inhale to expand. Exhale to contract. Inhale to expand. And then exhale. Go ahead and come back to sit on your heels just for a moment. What I'd like you to do is grab that pillow that you have. This is going to be an assistant in our next pose. So we're going to come into a pigeon pose. And pigeon can be really challenging for a lot of people. And it's a pose we see a lot in lots of yoga classes. So a few of you had asked for a good hip opener. This is one of my favorites, especially if we sit a lot all day, or if you're a runner, this is a fantastic one too. So what you're going to do to come into your pigeon pose is you're going to come to all fours, and you're going to take that right foot back, and then you're going to lift it up off the mat. And then on your exhale, I like to kind of come up on my fingertips and draw my right knee towards my right wrist and thread my right ankle towards my left wrist. So we're coming into this sort of pigeon position, as they call it. And if this is as far as you're going to go today, cool. You can take that pillow and roll it up and just prop it under that floating hip. If you'd like to go a little further, you can start to sink that hip down, walk that left foot back, and walk your fingertips back towards your shin. Now, if you're feeling a lot of tension in the knee, you can take that right foot and tuck it more towards your hip. That'll release some of the tension in the knee. It changes the shape, changes the stretch, and it changes the way it feels, especially on the outside edge of that right hip. But if you're feeling any kind of discomfort, go ahead and make that adjustment. I like to try to keep my shin somewhat parallel to the front of the mat. And here, I'm actually letting my hip roll towards the side, so I'm rolling into that pillow. A lot of times you'll hear that you want to square your hips. That's a really deep opener. So if you can, go for it. Nothing wrong with that. If you're like me and you're a little tense, especially in that front left hip flexor that's being extended right now, you're going to want to just kind of ease into it and just take a few breaths here. If it starts to feel like there's any kind of electric feeling or like a sharp feeling, immediately come out. You don't want anything that's sharp or pointy sort of feeling. You want it to be a soft sort of tension release feeling. And then if you'd like, once you start to feel like you need a little more, you're always welcome to come down onto elbows or down all the way onto your chest. And just take a few breaths. And then once you've taken those few breaths, you're going to walk your hands back towards your shin, tuck that back toe, so your left toes, and then you're just going to lift yourself up and come back into that tabletop position. And if you take a second and just roll the hips in a circle, so I like to call these kind of barrel rolls. It's like you're kind of cleaning out the inside of a barrel with your body. It's kind of the way I think of it. And then you can take that pillow and shift it to the opposite side, since that's the side we're going to work on next. You're going to take that left foot back, letting the toes rest on the floor. And then on your inhale, you can pick that left foot up, come onto your fingertips, just giving yourself a little bit of space. And then on your exhale, draw that left knee towards your left wrist, your left foot towards your right. And then you can start to just shift your hips and your knee back into that pigeon pose. And once again, so you can see it, what you can do with that pillow is actually just kind of roll it up and tuck it underneath that floating leg. So that space between your hip and the floor is being supported by the pillow. And here you can roll into the pillow, or you can choose to roll off. It changes the sensation of the hip opener, changes the way it feels. But just kind of play with it. And then as you feel better, or as you feel more comfortable, you can always get rid of that pillow and just come into that pigeon. And again, if that knee is bothering you, you can always take that left foot and draw it more towards your right hip. So you're just taking more flexion into the knee. But I like to keep the deeper opening where my shin is more parallel towards the top of my mat. And you can always stay here. Or if and when it feels good, you can slowly walk down onto your elbows. Take a couple breaths here. And if you like, you can take your forehead to the mat. You can walk your hands out and take your chest all the way down. Take a couple deep breaths. And then when you're ready, you're going to gently tuck those back toes, lift that back knee, and just slowly come back to all fours. And once again, just kind of shift the hips around in a circle. Notice how they feel. Shift left to right. And then from here, what I'd like you to do is take your hands underneath your shoulders and your knees underneath your hips and come back into that cat and cow. Just 2 more times. And from here, what I'd like you to do is go ahead and sit back on your heels for a second. We're going to come into our Savasana, but we're going to do it a little differently this time. Since we are feeling a little bit compressed and small and scared and wanting to sort of close down in this time, what I'd like you to do is take that pillow, and we're going to use it the way we used that blanket. I'm going to place it in the middle of our mat, and then you're just going to turn so that your hips come to the base of that pillow. You can grab your blanket if you like, and you can optionally use the blanket to cover yourself, or if you'd like support under your knees before you come to lie down on your back, you can do that as well. I'm going to choose to actually double my blanket over and just place it underneath my knees. And then all you have to do is just take your hands next to your hips and slowly lie back onto the pillow. So here, you may notice that your throat is open. What I'd like you to do is try to breathe into that space. So you're really trying to draw air down into the chest to allow the rib cage to expand and drop to either side of the pillow. And then you're just going to take your hands, palms face up. Let your shoulder blades drop down your back. Let your heart lift slightly. And take a few deep breaths here. Just letting your breath settle. Allowing your body to rest. Feeling that sense of opening across the front body, of opening across the rib cage, across the chest. Allowing the breath to move down into the belly. Feeling the expansion of your belly as you breathe. Allowing softness in the belly. And as you rest here just for a moment, I want to return back to the idea of that box breathing. What I'd like you to do is, with your eyes closed, take a nice deep inhale and just sigh it out. Take another deep inhale and sigh it out. And on your next inhale, for a count of 1, 2, 3, 4, hold at the top. 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 1, 2, 3, and 4. Hold at the bottom for 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold at the top for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold at the bottom for 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold at the top. 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold at the bottom. 4, 3, 2, and 1. And let your breath just simply return to normal. Allow your body to sink and soften. Feel the support of the earth beneath your skin and beneath your body. And continue to remain here until you feel it's time to move. Thank you so much for joining me today for Yoga for Normal People. Namaste.